So the Street Vendor Project is a membership-based organization of over 3,000 street vendors that work citywide to make sure that street vendors as small businesses are able to work with dignity and receive the licensing that they need. And the Corona Plaza Street Vendors Association formed in March of this past year, and we've been supporting them to grow. It supports it's made up of 81 street vendors who work here in Corona Plaza, who have organized together to actually form a 501c3 of their own so that they can work together. They have bylaws, they've elected a leadership, including Maria and Rosario, who are working together to formalize the plaza and improve conditions here. So everyone here is part of the Corona Plaza Street Vendors Association, has been working some people working in the plaza for 20 years, some people working for 3 years. People come to this work for many different reasons and have come together to form the association because they want to see a better Corona Plaza together. They want to be able to work legally. They want to regulate the plaza and work in collaboration with community, recognizing that there's many struggles that street vendors face in order to be able to obtain the proper permitting that they need.
Okay. So will you give me a background as to what happened the last couple of weeks? The Department of Sanitation came into the sweep. You held a rally last week. It's kind of after dividing the neighbourhood in many ways. Tell me, you said to me earlier that there's a couple of messaging that's not getting through to people.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, what's the common ground among all folks when we're having this conversation around Corona Plaza is that, everyone wants to see a Corona Plaza that is safe, that's equitable, and that works for all, right? Noting that street vendors are a vital part of what helps keep Corona Plaza safe and vibrant, right? And a place for families to come to. The vendors, as part of the reason that they formed an association, was because they wanted to work together with the city to improve conditions together, right? We have been part of a Corona Plaza task force that's helmed by the Queensborough president. We've held multiple meetings as recently as July 13th with the Department of Transportation, with the Mayor's Office of Community Affairs, with the Department of Sanitation, with DEP, you name it. The city agencies were there to have this meeting together to address issues, but with the community, right? With the vendors here who live and work in Corona. And so we had addressed issues. We were coming up with plans to address them, and those were in progress. Meanwhile, just about a week ago or a week and a half ago, not in alignment with all of the progress that's been taking place with the association and the task force, Department of Sanitation came in and told all the vendors to leave, right? Told them, you can't work. And since then, Department of Sanitation and NYPD have been in the plaza almost every single day for a duration of time. I think the car has left, but they were here all morning, making sure nobody sets up to vend, right? And when we see that, folks are on day 12 of no income. They're here, they're collecting signatures, they're having conversations and dialogue with community members, because the plaza is not just for the vendors, it's for everyone, but vendors do play a vital role. And so it's imperative that we all work together. And so here, folks have collected, just in this packet here, 5,054 signatures, all collected here in Corona Plaza. And then we actually have a whole nother section we haven't even been able to count yet because folks have been collecting so many of support, right? People who say things that resonate, right? That they want change, that they want to see a better Corona Plaza for all with the vendors as a part of it, right? And that's what they're...
So what does the petition actually, if you're signing on to the petition, what are you signing up to support exactly?
To sign up to the petition, you're signing up to say you want to see the street vendors come back to work. You want to see them coming back to supporting their community here.
Okay. So Carina, tell me, so these organisations were put in place, you were working with the city. How then did the place get to a point where the Department of Sanitation came in? People were saying that it got very unsanitary, there was crime in the area. How, if you've all these processes in place, did it get into the condition that people say that it got into?
Yeah, no, I think there are issues that have taken place, right? Absolutely. No one is denying that it's perfect, or no one's denying that it's imperfect, right? But I think there's examples of how we've been working together to make change. For example, the city bin. So there's a large dumpster that's over here. There's a large dumpster over here that the Department of Transportation and Department of Sanitation actually put in with the association, and the only people who have the keys are the vendors. So their trash goes in there. There's a coordinated WhatsApp chat where vendors are scheduling shifts for when they're throwing their trash out here, right? So I think that's an example of how there's an issue, we work together, and we solve it.
But people were saying that even those things were put in place, but the place was still not in a nice condition, that there was vendors operating, you couldn't even walk in the area. What would you...
And I think, those are absolutely fair points. And I think that's where we were looking to work with Department of Transportation to obtain a permit so that there would be more regulation in the plaza, right? So that there would be an orderly way for vendors to come in, to set up, and that it would also be regulated through that with a market manager.
How hard has it been, the event here, how hard is it to get a permit to operate here?
Pues es muy difícil para todos porque la ciudad no entrega los
So she was sharing first about the difficulty to obtain an individual permit for vendors, so that there's essentially no way to get an individual license to sell merchandise because there's been a cap in place since 1979 of only 853. And then she was sharing, and for food vendors, the need is also very high. They're starting to roll out 400 more each year, but there's already a wait list of 10,000 people on it. And so that's not even the amount that they're rolling out, they've been delayed in, but the amount they're rolling out is also not going to be sufficient to even meet those on the wait list. And then she was sharing about how what they've been working towards is a permit for the plaza to kind of regulate the market, but that also she's feeling, she and others are it's a very tough situation right now because now it's been 12 days that they haven't been able to make income. They're here, they're wanting dialogue, they're wanting to have a conversation about how we can improve things together. But right now what's happening is Corona families are being hurt.
So what are you going to do now if it continues like this and you can't operate?
Y por el momento, bueno, yo tengo mi esposo, gracias a Dios, él está trabajando.
So she was sharing that they're going to continue to try to make things work here. They want to continue to have dialogue with people. They want to continue to have conversations about how to make it work best. But that, there's over 100 families who are being impacted by this shutdown right now. But we want to be able to continue the conversations so that there can be a future for the plaza.
What do you sell here?
I sell backpacks, I sell Mexican artisanal handicrafts, backpacks for men and women, different types of merchandise like this.
How long have you been operating in the plaza?
She's been here for 3 years. Oh, and one thing she mentioned earlier that I forgot is that the reason that they're also continuing to keep this type of work is because it's proven to be a better working conditions for them rather than working for someone else who might have abusive labor practices, who might be stealing salaries, that this is a way that they get to open their own business.
What do you sell here?
¿Qué vende usted?
Carne asada, chuzos y alitas de pollo. Un plato típico ecuatoriano que es la tripa mixqui.
So she sells a traditional Ecuadorian meal called tripa mixqui. She also sells chuzos, which is like skewered meat. ¿Y qué más? Chuzos.
A las costillas.
Oh, and ribs.
How long have you been operating here?
For 10 years. Oh, sí, no más. So she's been working as a street vendor for 23 years throughout Queens, but here in Corona Plaza for 10 years.
And did you apply for permits before, and how hard has it been for you to get a permit?
So she shared that she has a mobile food vendor license, which she can get from the city, which is for food handling essentially, but then the permit for the cart is what has the most difficulty to obtain because of the cap. And so she's sharing that it's really because many people started out of nothing during the middle of the pandemic. They don't have the money to even rent one because that's the process right now, is getting one on the underground market because they're not available. And so she rents hers for $25,000 every 2 years from someone who got the permit back in the day. So it's kind of an underground market, but it's the only way for her to be able to obtain a permit in order to follow the rules of the city.
Could you just explain that to me again? So she has a license to sell food, but doesn't have the permit for the actual cart itself. Is that?
So, ¿tiene la licencia en su bolsa? ¿Me puede mostrar? This is her mobile food vendor license. And so anyone is able to, if you have an ITIN number or a social security number, you're able, and a sales tax ID, you're able to obtain a mobile food vendor's license. You do have to take 8 hours of food safety classes.
Right,
and
okay.
so she received this. This is something that's actually a requirement to be a part of the association, is for folks to obtain these. The issue is then the permit, which is like the A on this cart, for example. That's the permit.
Yeah.
And it has to go on every mobile food vending unit. So that's where there's a cap. And so the only way that she's able to get one in order to be in accordance with the law is to actually rent one on the underground market, and she rents hers for $25,000. And so the other thing she wanted to share is that, there's the cost of the permit, but then there's also the cost of the cart that you sell from, because most cart companies like that will make something like this. They make it based on what you are selling. So they design the cart based on what you're selling. So her cart cost about $30,000. So she was, and that can go between $30,000 to $40,000 on average. So she's sharing that it's an investment to get the permit as well as to get the cart itself. It's an investment of between $50,000, $60,000, which for people who are just starting out and just became vendors during the pandemic, it's a huge investment that they don't have to make, or the ability to make.
There's a lot of business owners here selling the same type of food, or like they might be selling at restaurants, brick and mortars, and they're saying that they're taking away the business from the brick and mortars businesses. What's your response to that?
Nadie le quita el negocio a nadie, simplemente
So she said a few things. One thing she shared is that, there's actually one of the reasons that there's commerce in Corona Plaza and that there's foot traffic is because the vendors here have really made it a place where like typical food, or like comida típica, which is like, what's the word, comida típica? Como like,
tradicional.
yeah, like traditional foods from Ecuador, from Mexico, from other South American and Central American countries, is people find that food here, and it's not something they're able to find elsewhere, as well as the culture. And so she's saying that actually, it would be interesting to talk to the businesses after the vendors haven't been here for some time to see how their business has been doing, because there's been much less foot traffic in the plaza. There's a lot less people coming. She's seen people who come and then leave because the vendors aren't here, and it's not like they're shopping in other businesses. It's actually more of a collaboration, and that's the goal, is that there's more of a collaboration. The only other thing to add is that people are here because they're committed. They're committed to conversation. They're committed to dialogue, and they're also live and work in Queens and Corona as well. And so it's not a battle of community. If anything, it's everyone is so invested and cares about the plaza, wants a safe way to be. People, bring their kids here to work next to them or to sit with them while they're working, right? So there's a lot of family energy that comes when the vendors are here as well, that you don't necessarily see when the vendors are not here. There's a need for more social services in the area. There's a need for more trash pickup, and that's what's going to make the community better together.
Are they the most immediate solutions? The permits is probably something that's maybe a long-term solution due to the laws or whatever. So you think in the meantime maybe Councilman Moya was proposed maybe having some zones or kiosks. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think that would be something we should have a conversation about, and we would love to have a conversation with Councilmember Moya about it, because folks want to come to the table. Working like this, 12 days without income, doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help Corona. It doesn't help the community at large, right? We need to be able to come to the table and have a conversation for the best of all.
Yo no sé por qué el señor Moya se enfoca tanto ahorita en los vendedores que estamos aquí.
She's saying, she was also wanting to share, like I'm here, we're all asking for Councilmember Moya for the opportunity to work together, that him as a fellow Ecuadorian, she's from Ecuador originally as well, to work together with us, not against us, essentially.
And there hasn't been any dialogue so between the council members' office and the...
We look forward to future dialogue.
Okay, no problem.
We're really hoping for as well response from the Department of Transportation to be able to work together with us, because we've had these conversations about getting a concession agreement to operate the plaza, and we need to expedite that process, right? Clearly, there's a need. We've been having these conversations for months, and we need action from the city as well to work together.
So what do you want the DOT to do specifically?
To have a concession agreement for the plaza that would allow the vendors to operate in a managed market.
Okay.
So that's what we've actually been working with them on for several months. It's just city move slow.
So would they have to create zones? So is that effectively what that would mean, a concession agreement?
It would be an agreement for where vendors can operate in the plaza.
Alright.
But that's something we've actually been meeting with them about, designing together, and that's something we really want to see move forward.
Did you say there was 81 vendors removed from
been
just
unable to work.
Corona Plaza?
And it's not that they all work together at the same time. There's people who come in the morning, some people who come in the evening.